Hi, this is Isaac from Turn Sounds. If you can wear plaid shirts with your friends, do it.
Welcome to Just Keep Walking. This is a podcast focused on the Walking Dead TV show, and today we're here to talk about both episodes 19 and episodes 20 of season 11. We're getting pretty close to the end, and it's starting to get exciting. So I'm your host Ben, joined today by
Isaac, hello.
And Liam.
Awesome. And looking forward to digging into these ones. For any questions and suggestions, head to turnsounds.com, or you can find us on social media, Instagram, Just Keep Walking Podcast, or Turn Sounds on Facebook. And very keen to hear your thoughts on the episodes and any feedback you have. Isaac, give us a spoiler alert.
Really quick, that was radio quality.
Was it?
Okay.
Okay.
Right there, Ben.
I kind of
Stepping up
just
a notch.
made it up, but there we go.
Very nice. Didn't miss a beat. But yes, spoilers ahead for all things Walking Dead.
Cool. Thanks for that. So we're going to get into 19 and 20, and then after this we'll release it as a separate episode, but we're going to watch 21 next. The reason we're doing it a bit later is because if you have AMC Plus on Amazon Prime, you'll know that there was a bit of a stuff up on the back end there, and episode 19 didn't get released until a few days after it should have. So that's the reason we couldn't record that when we wanted to, and then there was just some scheduling and stuff, so we've pushed it all back, but I think it's quite fun to do it this way for a change.
Was there any kind of public statement from them at all for that?
The closest I saw was just the Walking Dead page posted when it did go up that episode 19 is now available on all AMC channels. Yeah. Apologies for any inconvenience or whatever, but that was about as close as it got.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
No accountability.
Yeah. So, I did get a bit of money back from Amazon, so that's good. Yeah, but I had to email them for it. So if anyone out there hasn't done that, email Amazon and complain and ask for some money back, and they might give you some.
Cool.
Yeah, so because we've got a bit to cover today, we'll try and move through it pretty quickly. I've definitely got some notes. I figure you guys do as well. Rather than stopping at every point, I reckon we'll just keep moving, and if anyone wants to add something in, just stick your hand up and jump in. Yeah, and then there's some overall AMC stuff I want to talk about at some point, but I think we'll leave it till another episode because we can spend a lot of time complaining about them. All right, so overall, what are your thoughts on these last two episodes? I'll start if you like.
Please.
So 19, which was Variant. I definitely enjoyed it. Probably, each episode I would say in this chunk in 11C has gotten progressively better for me. I've enjoyed it a little bit more each time. Definitely not perfect. And the main thing is just the overall, where is the story going? That's what's a bit concerning at the moment. But when I've gone and rewatched the episodes, then I find it a lot easier to enjoy just knowing what's going to happen and choosing, all right, I know they're only going to focus on the Commonwealth for this episode, but I'll just enjoy what's there. So stuff like that. There's obviously a bit of a conversation we can have about the introducing variant walkers right at the end of the series, and where they can take that, if at all. It's just overall it feels a bit weird. It doesn't feel like it's the end of the show and that there's only 3 or 4 episodes left after this before they wrap it all up. But I have been enjoying the episodes. So yeah, I would say that for both of them. Episode 20 definitely for me feels that excites me a lot more, particularly because of the ending, because it feels like, okay, now we're really moving somewhere different. And it's not just the internal politics of the Commonwealth. It's actually, we're seeing something else going on outside. So I'm excited for what's next. Yeah.
I was going to ask, because Ben sent a message to the group saying, because he watched it ahead of Liam and myself, saying that he really enjoyed, you were something about it was refreshing or was different, left you excited.
I guess to clarify that, at the end of episode 19, I remember we saw the preview for this one and we were like, another filler episode at the Commonwealth. And that's how it's been feeling so far, is come on, let's get the story moving. And now the end of this feels like, okay, all the characters are kidnapped. They're on a train to some new place we've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like, I can see how things are going to go down in the next few episodes and come to a big, finale. So that's kind of what I meant by that. Yeah.
Okay. Because otherwise, I was all set to say boring for like
Okay.
episodes 19 and 20. Just like
Yeah.
classic trend of like, I don't really care. I'm not that invested in what's going on. I feel like all the characters that we like are safe. I'm never once afraid for Daryl in a shootout with someone else, or so-and-so gets kidnapped. Oh, they'll be all right. They'll be back around, And even like towards the end of the episode we just watched, like that kind of, well, we can go ahead and say it.
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
spot. Like
yeah.
the death of Lance, or Jim Carrey as we know him. Like very predictable. for
Right.
me.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we'll come back to that in particular. But yeah, all right, that's good to know. And what overall thoughts? How are you feeling, Liam?
I'm probably halfway between both of you. So
Okay.
I think each episode has been getting that little bit better throughout this chunk, but it's still, compared to like the other seasons we've had, miles behind. But like, I am enjoying this a little bit more now, which is nice.
Cool.
And like you say, we've now got a little bit of, okay, this is going somewhere. There's stakes here.
Yeah.
There's kidnap afoot.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of an investment from my part. I'm like, okay, this isn't just internal politics that's just bored me to death.
Yeah. Exactly that. All right. Well, I'll just move through a few notes, and you guys feel free to jump in whenever you have any, and we'll go from there. So yeah, the openings of Judith doing the little narration. It's now becoming a bit more clear that each episode's sort of focusing on a specific character to an extent. So we had Eugene for the last one, and I like just the simplicity of that, and just calling back to things that you might not remember. Of that's where Eugene came from, and for all of the characters, it's just nice to get a little reminder of some stuff like that. So I thought that was nice. And the music as well. Now I'm getting a bit more into the flow of things with like, that was the track from when he took the bus off just before Negan captured everyone. And he was taking it to be the decoy, or the RV, I should say, not the bus.
Right, right.
And that was his sort of first moment of really being brave, and when Abraham said, "You're a survivor now," and stuff like that, because he had really been a coward up until that point.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice musical callback, which I'm pretty sure that track's only used in that scene. So yeah, there we go.
That's nice.
I've been a little bit of a slack boy on the notes for
Sure,
the
yeah.
last two. I think we were eating dinner for
Oh,
this
that's
one,
right.
so-
Yeah, we were. Oh, good. Well, we'll get into the variant discussion. A very important note before that is that people have been kind of theorizing, are they going to try and tie it into season one? How like
Yes.
Morgan's wife tried to open the door and there was a walker with a rock climbing over fences and stuff. Because so far it seemed like that was just because the directors changed and they just changed their minds on what they wanted to do. And so they just swept it under the rug and pretended it never happened. But the question was, are they going to do that, or are they going to introduce it as this new thing and potentially tie it into World Beyond, where there was a tease of like faster walkers in Europe and stuff like that. So that was the question. And within the episode, the fact that it climbs over a fence, opens the door, and picks up
has
a rock.
Yeah.
That was a pretty obvious nod to anyone who's aware of what happened in season one. But then in the episode diaries or whatever they call it for the behind the scenes stuff, Angela Kang just like casually was like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely tied into season one. That's exactly what we were going for." So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. I'm pretty much holding my judgment for now until we see where they go with it, because it really seems very random that it's such a small, it was just one scene and it doesn't even feel like they're going to come back to it. But I'll wait until the end of the series to see if they do anything with it for me. What do you guys think?
Well, one particular thing, very much so with that scene as well, and that whole setting in the Renaissance sort of fair, is I remember feeling like, oh, like this is a little bit chilling. It's a bit scary. Like
It is a cool setting.
anytime it happens in this show where you realize, oh, are the walkers scary again? Like, because at the heart of it, really, like, it's terrifying. The Walking Dead people, like, that's a horrific idea. And we've become so, like, desensitized to it, like, watching the show. So I think anytime it's creative with the way that it does the music and, like, or lack of music and things like that, and not just for the jump scare sort of effect, but just for the creepiness of it. It reignites that in me, and that was something in that particular episode. And then there was a bit in this episode as well with they're in the dark with all the skinless ones. Oh man, yuck. Oh, yuck.
And if I can add to that, like when I remember watching the very first episode of the show for the first time, and that was the bit that really freaked me out, was like Morgan's wife trying to open the door, and that's a lot scarier to me than just walkers who are stupid and just shuffle around, don't know what they're doing. If it's like this shell of a person who used to exist and they're still trying to do their old habits, that's kind of creepy.
Or I could add one more, and I think we've done this in our previously on The Walking Dead, earlier on in I think early season 2, where Carl is trying to get the bag of weapons out of like a car that's stuck on the highway. And he's reaching across, and you're thinking, oh, at any moment is this thing going to come to life? And that kind of just tenseness of like you don't know what's going to happen.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then like it just falls forward or something, and you're like, oh my god! So
Good callback, actually. Very good callback.
Very good callback.
I remember feeling very tense in that moment.
Yeah, that was done really well.
Yeah, and that's something that you have with zombie movies, or like early in the show, is that we didn't quite know all the rules yet of how these things behave, so that adds a lot of exactly. Neither did they. So now introducing a little bit of that unknown definitely helps. But what do you think, Liam?
I'm all for it, but I'm also the same as you in that, like you, Benji, that I'm sort of holding out judgment until the end of the series. So I've always been a massive fan of the zombies as the threat. I get, like, after season 2, that very much fades, and it's the other survivors that become the main threat, the main antagonists, which is great because you don't want it to be too monotonous. But at its core, The Walking Dead is a zombie show, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So anytime they become the main threat, or they're just built up to be far more scary, I'm always going to be all for it, because that's what drew us in initially.
Big time.
Yeah. But there are parts of it that are, I'm like, it just feels like they're trying to tidy it up, and that sort of takes me out of the show a little bit.
How do you mean tidy it up?
Like when you say, how am I going to verbalize this? English is...
As in like tying it into season 1
Not
and saying,
that.
that was the plan all along.
Actually, that's probably the best way to put it. Yeah, so just sort of saying, we knew what we were doing right from the get-go. Like, no, I don't think you did. Like, you hear Aaron say, like, I've heard stories of walkers. I was like, where?
That I kind of liked, actually,
because the other day, and
that could be Rick even telling a story of, we were in Atlanta, and these walkers chased us and jumped over a fence,
fair play.
Someone tried to open a door. Like,
even then, though, I feel like you would have turned that around and said, Rick used to say. Well, Rick told me a story once. Like it just seems very vague to be.
Right.
I've heard stories. Like, where do you get these stories?
I feel like that's
the
way
community is
safer,
pretty small.
Yeah.
I do agree with Isaac though. Yeah,
it's to be vague means that he could have seen it on a fly. Like there was so much of Aaron's life before we even saw him that he could have heard a story or two of something. So it's like that is the safer writing option. But with the variant discussion itself, I think it fits with the idea of anytime there's a new situation with walkers that they haven't been with, it makes sense that they make mistakes or they're not quite sure how to. Another one that comes to mind is when we first, I don't know what season, Ben will know because he's a freak, where they're in like a basement and it's filling up with water. No. They're on the church mission. This is right. And the people, like there are walkers underneath the water that pop up and start grabbing people. Oh yeah, poor
hanging out there,
smiling Bob.
That's where he got bit.
Oh no. But situations like that where it's like, here's something which we the audience have never seen, and for all intents and purposes, neither of the characters. And so I think tying that in with this, like a variant thing coming along that they don't know but heard stories of it. So ties
And I
in.
like that he assumed it was a whisperer as well until
Yeah.
he ripped his face off. Like, oh, okay, there's not a person under there.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Liam?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
Cool. One other random one which I noticed on the rewatch. Did you guys remember at the start when they introduced the set of the Renaissance Fair, there's like a kind of a weird drone shot that like flies through a little gap in the fence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it looks kind of cool, but I don't know if it's intentional at all. It might not have been, but that could have been a little hint of like that's how the variant saw through the fence and saw that they were in there, and that's what made him decide to come around and open the gate. So
You could say that.
yeah,
I like
that's
that.
something.
Nice little callback.
Yeah.
Can I say that like it's not my favorite thing
Sure.
zooming through objects where it's
Yeah.
very clearly like we saw the Hessian sack over like Ezekiel's head
True,
in this last
actually,
one.
yeah.
Same deal. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. So that was more of me like, oh, that shot really stands out. Maybe there was a reason behind it, but you can't explain that with the sack on Ezekiel's head.
There's a
necessarily.
cognitive dissonance that happens where you're like the camera is kind of like our head, like what we can see. And so for it to come up to a thing and to go through a tiny object, you're like, well, I can't do that. Like, so I think there's a disconnect that happens.
True. Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah. The only other thing with the variant is, again, it depends where they're going with it. But if they wanted to introduce it as a threat, which it kind of feels like that's what you should be doing, I really feel like if not that I want any of the characters to die, but if it had like killed Jerry or something, that would have really been like, oh wow, this is scary now. But that kind of made it fall slightly flat for me. It's like, oh, it's scary, but it's just another walker, and there's not really any consequences because there hasn't been a main character death in like 2 seasons or so.
And at this point, like anytime there is going to be a major character death, it can't be because they made a mistake or because they reached out a la what's her name on the bus for season 1. The sister, what's her name?
Amy. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In which case, this would be the perfect scenario because they think they're all over it, but then this walker's doing something completely unexpected. So it would justify a death because it's completely out of nowhere. So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's how Jesus met his demise, right?
Yeah.
So
Which there were a few other similarities to that actually, even the turning head at the start of the episode.
yeah. Do you remember Liam? I mentioned that one
Yep.
because that was Liam's big discovery with the other walker. I forget what the details were, but
Yeah, just that the one that turned its head was the same one that stabbed Jesus at the end. Yeah. So I think we'll come back and chat about it at the end of the series, but we'll just have to see what they do with it. And I'm very curious. There doesn't seem like there's much room to come back to that in this series. So if that's purely a setup for another show where they're going to do something with it, I'm not sure. We'll see.
otherwise it's more of a distraction. Hey.
Yeah. It just makes you go, why?
Yeah.
Like, if it was just for one scene. Yeah. Cool idea though, and it was exciting in the trailer at the very least, and made me intrigued. So, to Pamela with Sebastian, who's there dead on the table. Just one very random thought when she walks out of the room and says to the soldier after he reanimates, she says, "Take care of him," and it's very vague as to whether that means stab him in the head or like actually take care of him.
Because I think she says it as well. Does she say him?
Oh,
or it?
yeah, she might say it. Yeah.
'Cause I thought she said it. Take care of it. Like, okay, Roger.
Oh, now I'm thinking she says him, but I could be
We'll
wrong.
find out.
Yeah, but all I thought in the moment was, does she mean like take him out or protect him? So we obviously find out in the next scene, but that just would have been fun if she walks back in the room. No, I said take care of him, not kill him.
You were clear, ma'am.
That's ask questions if you're not sure.
Yeah. I really like Mercer. He is one of my highlights for season 11 as far as new characters and introductions, and I'm really liking the amount of time that they're giving him. It seems like not too much, but just the right amount that he's getting a solid character arc. We're interested in, what he's going to decide as far as where his loyalties lie and what he's going to do with the situation. And he's just the actor is just someone I find easy to be invested in and care about. So that's in particular his conversation with Princess when she leaves.
Yeah.
And just that whole scene I thought was really well done. And all I can say is it was really good. What did you guys think?
I really liked how Princess spoke around how she was like lost her mind a bit. Because I could be wrong, but I feel like they didn't really give any explanation to that at all.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah, for her to say, when I was out by myself, I'd lost my mind, and Eugene and the rest of them brought me back. Like, that's a really nice touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with everything he said. Maybe not quite.
Almost.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mercer, I'm still not 100% invested in, just because. Maybe it's just because I'm not as invested in this whole season.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I like where his character arc is.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that. Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Mercer, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. The scene with Princess and kind of her going back through her life story. Anytime this show does that, though,
Yeah.
I forget who the other Maggie did it a bunch of times, but then Daryl's girlfriend.
Oh, Leah?
Leah?
Yeah, I think Leah.
Okay. But she did it as well, where she launched into like a background story or something where it's like, in the past this happened to me. And it's like, sure, it's interesting to the person you're talking to if they care about you, but us, the audience members, or certainly myself, I'm just there going, this is precious time that we're running out, because good what Liam said about like a bit of a background, I was on my own and I was stir crazy and this is why these are good people. But then for her to launch back into when I was 5 years old, or whatever the thing was, and it's like, yes, it's a powerful story and it has meaning, but also like overdoing it, I thought maybe.
Okay.
Or using up time again. It's all just a time
It
thing.
is
It's
a time
you
thing,
could go to
yeah.
something else.
The reason I would disagree is because it definitely at least parallels and ties into the main story, because what she's talking about is like, it being in an abusive situation or a situation that's really not great, and rather than just saying, hey, it could be worse, you should be thinking, no, it could be better, and how can we make it better? Because Tommy and Mercer and everyone's kind of going with this whole Commonwealth thing. This is not great, but it's better than being out there. But she's kind of challenging that and saying, well, maybe that's not good enough. You shouldn't just accept it could be worse. So I feel like those words are going to ring in his head, Mercer's head, and that's what's going to affect him in the next few episodes and sort of what decision he makes. So
Well put,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way.
But I do agree. Side note, it's become a meme now. But in Lord of the Rings, when he goes on that random rant
Yes.
about the sunset,
Yes.
when he's been asked a straightforward question. So if you've seen Rings of Power, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's something along the lines of, "How did your wife die?" And he just replies, I'm used to seeing the sunset in the east, but and he talks for like a minute about something completely random, and then just says she drowned.
Yeah.
So that's, if you've seen the meme, now you know.
So when he's asking, why do you think they're good people?
Yeah.
When I was 5 years old,
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of thing, if it's completely just doesn't add anything to the scene, then I'm with you. It's like, why did you waste time talking about that? With back to the crew at the fair, there's the awkward non-kiss with Lydia and Elijah. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I wrote down, the only thing worse than an awkward moment is one with witnesses, because Aaron's just there like watching.
Well, to be fair, Elijah, like, she's making eyes at him, holding eye contact.
Yeah.
She looks at his lips. Ooh, it should be game over then. It's like, you don't look at another person's lips and and then he leans in and then, oh no, you don't. How dare you try it? And then she makes it all awkward. Like, she's a teenager, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Going
she still
through
a
some
teenager?
stuff. I don't know.
I don't even know how old they are.
Late teenager, early 20s, probably.
Yeah. But my other note, just with regards to Lydia overall, is I liked her little thing, her little arc in that episode. And if that, like, because she hasn't had that much screen time in season 11, which I'm happy with. She had a big thing in season 10 in the finale. And for me, like, if we don't get another meaningful scene with her after this, I'm happy with that, because it's sort of, she's dealing with the loss of Henry, has that conversation with Aaron, and then by the end of the episode, she chooses to kiss Elijah and essentially live happily ever after. So, like, that, as far as dealing with the side characters and kind of wrapping up some loose ends, I feel like that for her is a good example of, like, that I'm happy with that. Let's leave it there. And yeah, you know, we can see her in the background of a few other scenes, but I'd be very happy if that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Good closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Ben liked a scene with Lydia.
But yeah, I mean, just as far as, like, it seems like every other character is a loose end at the moment.
That's it.
But there's one that's like, okay, leave it there. That's great. The little Eugene versus Daryl face off. You better back up Hoss or whatever he says. That was just, yeah, great.
I want to know, though, how much does wearing sleeves really constrict your movement? Why do you have to roll up your sleeves before you administer a good beating?
Yeah.
Does anyone get blood on your sleeves or whatever? If you're, that's
Maybe.
probably it, actually.
Yeah, probably. It depends how tight of a shirt you're wearing, I
guess
guess.
so.
Yeah.
But he holds up his hands in a way that don't even protect his face at all. Like,
Yeah. So that was a good little moment. And also, this is kind of a side note, but, like, I've been thinking recently, I think I saw a Reddit thread about, like, characters who don't usually interact or who you haven't seen interact before. And Eugene and Daryl's one where, like, I can't think of another time where they've ever actually spoken to each other face to face. There's, like, maybe once, but
that's kind of just Daryl with most other characters.
yeah,
though, isn't
true.
it?
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting. And in the teaser for next episode, there's Ezekiel and Negan, and they've never had a scene together where they interact. Even though off screen it's definitely implied. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting side random thing to think about. They haven't had a scene together. Which, calling back to, I'll go to you in a second. Calling back to the thing where Carol lets Negan out to assassinate Alpha. That was such a great twist when you found that out, because Carol and Negan had never had a scene before. So yeah, it's kind of cool when they use things that way. But what were you going to say?
When you say they've never had a scene together, is that just one-on-one or?
Never interacted on screen is probably the best way to put it, because some characters have been in the same scene, but we've never seen them actually talk to each other.
We have seen Eugene and Daryl talk.
Okay, yeah. Whereabouts?
Probably one of my favorite episodes.
Ooh.
The intro to the Whisperers.
Yeah, that's
when they find
right.
Eugene in the little barn.
Yeah. Oh, good memory.
Yeah. Only because it's, like, one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. Hats off, definitely.
Yeah.
Good job. There you go. I'm glad to be proven wrong there.
We've hit the 30-minute mark.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all I had for episode 19. Anything from you guys?
It's not like a harsh criticism or whatever, but like I suppose you could throw it in with the confusion with the variants and everything. A couple of silly mistakes from what should be seasoned survivors, like just dropping tools, and like we talked about this. They're behind the counter or something. There's all these walkers.
Yeah,
lined up, like, you
just
could
stab
just
them.
be stabbing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some things like that.
And if we're talking about, you could just call it a coincidence at the very least. Why is there a big rock up on the roof?
It was cool that it was such a deliberate thing that the walker then turns and kneels down and picks up the rock. Like,
yeah.
I do like that.
It is interesting to know, like, it'll be interesting how far they get into what the limitations are, because he had a knife stabbed into him and he wasn't smart enough to grab the knife and use that as a weapon, but he could see the rock and identify that as something he can grab. So, yeah, just interesting. Anything else to add? Sorry, go for it.
Well, just one little thing, actually. We'll try not to make this a can of worms. I don't know how you guys feel about the science or whatever behind any of this. I know that they kind of tried to not delve into the science of all of this. But I think I'd like something said about just walkers in general and how strong they seem to be. Not like a full-on anatomical breakdown or whatever of like, oh, as they decompose their muscle fibers, actually blah, 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 and they get strong. Just an offward comment like, dude, have you noticed how strong all these walkers are? The way that every time they like go to latch onto us, we can't seem to shake them off so easily. Like,
That'd be nice.
something, because then you could imagine like, here comes a walker wielding a rock that could just crack your head open, like, and just, I feel like it just makes them so much more dangerous knowing how strong they are and something actually acknowledged about it.
Yeah. I mean, you could get into how you go first, Liam.
No, finish your train of thought.
Okay, you could get into how like the human body does have strength that we don't necessarily always use. Like your teeth, you could bite your own finger off.
Sure.
You've got the strength to do it, but your brain tells you not to.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they don't have those inhibitors, then they can do a lot of things that people have the strength to do but don't choose to do. So.
I have the best way that they could reveal all of that, rather than the little throwaway comment.
It's
like
a
you
Negan
suggested.
thing, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Better.
Okay.
They go into this old warehouse or room or something or other, and there's just a gym full of
Yeah.
workers. Getting some work in.
With Mercer at the front doing like the aerobics
exactly.
thing.
You've got
Working
Walker's doing a
Dead.
deadlift.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Walker's doing a deadlift.
Yeah.
There's a pun for
That's
you.
a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something. My wife next door, she'll have a bunch of things. I'll come back to you.
Yeah. All right. So into this episode 20. The Daryl choking fight at the start. I really like that.
Hang on,
You guys feel free to disagree, but what I feel like for this episode overall, what stood out a bit to me was that in all these other ones so far, we've pretty much had like massive things where you'd go, hey, why didn't they just do that? Why did the Jeep flip over in the middle of a flat field? For this, there's definitely some things if you want to nitpick and say, oh, that's not quite realistic. But those, like that moment in particular with that fight and a few others later in the episode too, like I felt it, and there wasn't anything obvious that you go, oh, why don't you just do this? Like it felt like they had actually really thought that fight through, and it was quite intense, and the different things that they were trying were like, yeah, that's what I would do, and that's what would probably happen in real life. So I quite liked just that visceral feel of it, and that felt like a well choreographed fight with one person is a lot more exciting than 50 people if it's not well thought through. So yeah. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of things in the episode. But what do you guys reckon?
I wrote one very small thing to the contrary on that one. But my first note right before that scene is Ezekiel comes to meet Carol, right? And they're talking, she doesn't say nice to see you. She just says, I thought this was goodbye or something. So that's rude. But anyway. So then she looks up and there are these guys walking in the room. Do we look for Ezekiel? No, she just legs it out the room. She just runs away.
Oh, no, she did, because she turned around and Ezekiel had disappeared. And she
Yeah.
went, where are you? And then they came in. So I don't know.
Anyway, I just thought it's like, Ezekiel who? I'm legging it. Off I go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, now I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So I like that with the fight with Daryl, we already see that there's another guy dead on the ground. Because we cut to Daryl, who's being choked by this guy, and straight away I'm like, I don't believe this for a minute. There's no way that some guy would get the jump on Daryl. And then I saw the guy on the ground next to him. I was like, oh, okay. So maybe started off as two. You worked your way. Maybe you're a bit tired, but you've taken one of the guys down. You've got a knife in one of the other guys, like his chest or something.
Yeah.
My one little thing on that one is I don't know if you've accidentally or purposefully ever been hit like in the windpipe on the throat. And even just like a small tap, and you're like, oh, like it's. And so if somebody's actually actively choking you, there's no way you get up and recover straight away. Like there's at least a good couple of minutes of like coughing and trying to get you.
Okay.
He's a tough guy and all that. I get it.
One thing I say, at least it's better than, and no, this isn't anything against women. There's a lot of women stronger than me, but in Dante versus Rosita, she was in the same position. He had pinned her down, and he's a massive guy, and she's like a fairly petite lady.
Who's
and
Dante again?
Oh
yes, the
smiley, creepy guy. Yeah, and she just like from that position, she just like grabs him and like throws him off. So
yeah,
in the past, there's been a lot more unrealistic situations. But yeah, so I like that this was, even though Daryl's really strong, he's still in a very vulnerable position there. So yeah.
And you're right, like, he tries clawing in his face and everything. He gets swatted away. He tries punching or whatever. Yeah, so true. There's a lot more consideration in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just felt exciting, I guess. Although one thing to note with that Carol scene is that it's another thing that's just not very well thought through is she says, "Oh, Ezekiel, how are you?" without looking at him, and he's like, "How'd you know it was me? I recognize your footsteps." It was something along those lines. And then he gets abducted and she doesn't even hear it. They've literally just put in a line about how good her hearing is, and then she doesn't hear him get abducted from the same position.
Maybe it wasn't that. Maybe he had like bad body odor or something. She didn't want to hurt his feelings. So, your footsteps. I don't know.
I'll accept that. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really, especially rewatching this, I quite liked most of it, even though like the Yumiko stuff, I would say, why are we wasting time on lawyer stuff in like the last episodes of a zombie show? But each scene in itself, I quite like the dialogue and how it all pans out. So that's one of those ones where rewatching it, I know that it's there and I've accepted that, and now I can kind of enjoy it for what it is. So I don't really have too much bad to say about most of that. I thought it was fairly well done. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to direct your attention to something, you and the listeners, actually. So
Yeah.
here we have someone, Pamela, we're talking about here, who has a child that has died and has turned, who she is now keeping around, and she is also called the governor.
Yeah.
Are we seeing some parallels here?
Coincidence? I think not.
We have not yet seen all the heads in the jars behind her desk and stuff. So
She also hasn't lost her eye.
that not yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not yet.
Exactly.
If that happens, I'll just like laugh. Oh man.
Yeah. That's a very good parallel.
Yeah.
You know what this means? Coming full circle. We're going back to Woodbury.
We're going back to
Yes.
Woodbury.
There it is.
Nice. Yeah, she had some definite, like, almost scary moments in this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what. So Lance leaves his coin in the guts of her son or something like that to say, "Hey, it was me. I did it," or whatever. Maybe.
We look like
Just
he
to kind of
crushed his
spite
head.
her, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and crush his head. Yeah.
smashed his head in and put the coin in the head to be like, hey, like you say, this was me.
I'm glad she didn't do like a big unhinged scream or something like that. But
True.
like, you could tell she was moments away from it, and I think
Yeah.
that's really good. But she's keeping her composure because she has to. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
But she's she's losing it for sure.
And both these last two episodes, for me, I'm really, she as a villain is growing on me a lot more now, especially this episode. Because in the sort of second part of the season, where there was the whole resist the Commonwealth, or that, like, this is a separate tangent, but I can't name one thing that we saw of her that was actually wrong, that where she did something corrupt. We saw Sebastian do stuff behind the scenes that she didn't even know about, but like, she seemed perfectly reasonable in most of her scenes. So it was kind of hard to get on board with like resist the Miltons, all that, because we hadn't really seen her do anything evil. We just kind of assumed, I guess she's evil because there's corruption. But at least now, like, especially this episode, her stuff with Yumiko, like, that seems like really cunning. She's thought every detail of it through, and this is who she is. So I'm definitely a lot more on board with that now. And then the music as well for I'm not sure if it might be used for a few scenes of just Lance as well, so whether it represents the Commonwealth power or just the Miltons themselves, just that dun, dun, dun,
Yes,
dun,
yeah.
dun. I'm really liking how that's been used recently, and particularly when she does find the coin and finds Sebastian's body, the way it builds up there is like, this is
There's
cool.
also something, I'm going to call it the Joker string or whatever. You know, that like, that just like gets louder and louder with the Joker. I think it's also in the Tenet movie quite a lot, like that kind of. But yeah, that I forget who that was around. Maybe that was around Jim Carrey as well.
Maybe.
As he's like, yeah, they're in the puddles of blood and stuff like that, muttering to himself. I don't know. What was he saying?
Okay.
I couldn't tell.
Couldn't hear what he was
Yeah.
saying. No.
Probably doesn't matter. Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll go back and listen for that. Yeah,
Something there.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I really over the whole season overall, but particularly this episode as well. I just love Lance and the actor who plays him. Like, it's just such a interesting guy to watch. But so that for me is a bit of a shame that he dies at the end of the episode. Because he was really getting to the point where it's like, oh, this guy's getting really interesting. I want to see what's next with him. Yeah. So that is kind of a shame, but a glimmer of potential hope, which I was talking to Dave Cameo from Squawking Dead during the week. I was chatting with him just on Instagram chat. And he was kind of feeling a bit disappointed about that as well, because it seemed like Leah, Daryl's girlfriend, when she died, that was pretty much just swept under the rug except for one conversation.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, that's that. See ya. Like, never mention her again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a worry that they might do the same thing here, that they've built up this really interesting character and then just killed them and then completely moved on.
Because he was the first face you see of like the Commonwealth as well, like in all the training videos and everything. And gee, that was funny. Oh man.
Yeah.
But like when Carol, he's in his cell and he's whimpering and all this, and she says like, "Look at me," like, you know, and all that. Right there in that moment, I was like, "Oh, is he gonna like, you know, join up with them, you know,
Yeah.
long, you know, rehabilitation, all of that." But like, oh, are we starting to see you turn around as a character in this? And yeah, so bit of a shame.
Definitely.
It definitely wasn't like a death that I was looking forward to, or when it happened, I was like, yes, we got him. Just a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the glimmer of hope for that is potentially that they could do something interesting and do it metaphorically as well, because he's been shot in the neck and died, but that obviously leaves the possibility for him to come back as a walker. And what we were talking about, Dave and I, was that while, you know, he could come back and still walk on as a dead person, a lot of the actions and the things that he's set into motion can also still keep moving even after his death. So there's a few things. I mean, the cliffhanger at the end of the second mid-season finale, remember, where he's flipping the coin, what that left it on was on Oceanside, and it kind of seemed like he was flipping the coin, deciding their fate, and has never come back to Oceanside since then. So Aaron and his crew are on the way there. So there's still, that's an unresolved thing where we might find that he's killed everyone, including Luke, unfortunately, at Oceanside, potentially.
Take that back.
And there was also the mention. Yeah. He also mentioned to Pamela, like, oh, other alliances that I've set up, if I'm gone, then they would crumble, or things would start to happen there, which could tie into the CRM, the group who took Rick with the helicopters. There's all sorts of potential ways that could go. So that's kind of an interesting idea that it would be good to see if, like, even though he's died as a character, there's still a lot of after effects of the stuff that he's done that's still going to be revealed. So, yeah, that's kind of my last thoughts on that, really. But anything else from you guys?
Well, he sort of showed his colors finally then. Like, they gave him the opportunity to walk away. Because he said, like, that guy died in the cell. Like, I'm a new man and all of that. And then he showed right at the end, no, you're not a new man. So I guess that makes his death a lot more deserving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even before that, did he set up, you know, they came out of that tunnel thing and the guards were already there, or did he set that up? I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, that was a bit strange. That was definitely the low point of the episode for me. I was like, what was the point of that?
Well, they walk out into the clearing and, let's take a breath. And then, like, right there on the road.
Yeah.
And then how'd you guys feel about that whole scene being shot in the dark with the skinless zombies and, like, the torch purposefully being kicked away and all that?
I found it hard to follow.
Yeah.
Really tough to follow.
I wondered, like, it was annoying me in the moment while we were watching it, but then I kind of wondered, make it a lot easier to, like, hide the costuming or whatever? Is it just
Yeah, probably.
easier to
Maybe.
shoot? I don't know.
Still, that I mean, I'm obviously we love the characters, but I do want to see some big deaths, hopefully towards the end, just for the sake of like adding stakes to the show. And I don't think they would kill Carol off, but that
They
would have
might,
been
though.
something potentially like in that moment. Because there was a few points where it's like, oh, she's almost about to get taken out or bit by this walker. That like would have been a moment where you go, oh, wow, Carol got bit.
There's still like that.
Yeah,
could
it
be
could
like a Carl
happen.
twist, given that she's now no longer doing the show with Daryl.
Yeah.
So
well,
all
it
we
could
know,
be
she
a
might have
Bob
been
moment
bitten.
where she
Yeah.
did get bit and she's hiding it.
Tainted me. No, but that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. I feel like with these veteran characters, it has to be, I'm going to die because I'm going to hold off the thing here while you all escape, and then the door gets burst down and she takes out as many as she can, but then she gets swarmed over and she dies.
Yeah.
It can't just be a silly mistake or she put herself in a vulnerable position, unnecessarily.
The only way that would work is if it's a direct, like Lance caused it and he intentionally like left her to a bunch of zombies, and then that's, yeah, like, oh man, we got to get revenge on Lance, but they've killed him anyway.
They still could go down the route of her doing something like that, but the reason she does do that, she's like, well, I'm dead anyways. I've been bitten. So
Yeah.
like I've already
Like Carl, kind
yeah,
of.
exactly. My time's numbered, so I might as well make my death mean something. I'll sacrifice myself to let you guys get away.
Mm.
That,
True,
I wouldn't
yeah.
be surprised if that happens.
Yep. I'd take that.
Yeah, actually, that would work. Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Her dying, I'd be happy with that.
Which, yeah, that's the not her dying necessarily, but that's the last thing I want to talk about before we end this episode is just big character deaths. And really, you could potentially say like Alden was. I wouldn't call him a main character. He was a named character at least.
Yeah.
He died in season 11. But honestly, I think Sadiq, aside from villains, he's the last big-ish character who's actually died. And even him, like, he's not that big.
He was decent.
Yeah, he's big enough. I quite liked him.
Yeah.
So unless I'm forgetting something, and that's been pretty much 2 whole seasons worth
Yeah.
since then, which is just interesting in a show that was really, when it was sort of at its height of popularity, that's what kept it quite interesting, was like anyone could die, no one's safe, and main characters, were getting killed quite often, and obviously you don't want to just do it for the sake of the gimmick or, oh, look at this person who just died, but the things like the variant, if you wanted to build up the stakes with the Commonwealth, you could have had Gabriel or someone be killed by Sebastian's actions, and then that would really make you invested in that storyline and want to get revenge. Like, there's just things that would make you care a lot more if you actually saw a main character die and you knew that there was the possibility of happening to other people. It would make you care a lot more.
In the episode with Gabriel and Aaron, where they go off together and they eat the pig, and then we meet John Connor, old guy.
Yeah.
There was
Or T1000, I think that one is.
Yeah.
And then John Connor was in the season 11.
true. Oh, that one, that one as well. But in both those cases, I think there were real moments there where you're going like, damn. Even though no one died, it still you almost felt the same effects as if someone had, because you care for the characters and you actually believe that anything could happen.
Yeah.
But then nothing did. And so it was, it's like you got that and no one felt safe, but also you didn't feel the terrible loss that comes with losing a character that you like. And I actually prefer it that way. I feel like it's still stakes, it's still, you're still protective of the characters you like and you don't have to say goodbye to them. So,
Yeah. I guess the only flip side of that is each time that happens, it reinforces in your mind, oh, okay, they're not actually killing main characters. And then the next time there's a situation, it's like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Whereas I felt like in the earlier seasons, anytime, someone was wrestling with a walker or there was a tense situation, you went, oh, like they could actually die here, which I just don't feel that at the moment. But we haven't watched episode 21 yet, and there's only 4 episodes left, so So we'll have to see what happens, I guess.
One final thing
Yeah.
on that one. I think they became neatly aware of kind of the closure cliche. Like anytime two characters, well, we'll see each other again soon, and thanks for
Yeah.
being my pal, and they hug and whatever. You just know that someone is gonna die, right? Because that's the closure before the death. And I think they started to realize that, and so we had moments like I think Jerry and Ezekiel had like a good parting moment, and you're like,
Yeah, that's right. I
see you
remember
later,
that.
Jerry, or see you never, Jerry. And then in that episode, I think he's crawling along, he gets stuck under one of the rocks, and like a walker comes along and starts gnawing at his boot, and you're going, no. But so but they didn't eventuate to anything. So
Yeah.
I think-
That's a good point, actually.
yeah.
And you
Subverting
mentioned that.
expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if that's a culture thing overall, because you mentioned that with Rings of Power as well. There was a fairly obvious one of, I'll see you again soon. And they're not going to see each other soon. But then they did. And it's like,
Flowers to
okay.
the widows.
There's a surprise because it's subverting expectations,
Yeah.
like as Ryan Johnson would say.
Add on to that, like I feel like they did that with the variant thing. They did the slow mo sort of combat
yeah.
scene. I'm like, oh, Jerry's about to arc.
True.
He's about to cark it now. So I think I could be mistaken. Last time we saw that was Jesus with
Yeah.
right. We're like, oh yeah, we know what this means. He's gonna die.
That was a neat shot
It was
with him taking them like 3 or 4 like in a circle.
Yeah.
I just wish it wasn't slow motion. I think it would have looked
Yeah,
sick
if
if
it
you just
was
did a
in
quick thing.
real time and he did that. Yeah.
I thought the exact same thing, and I thought, oh, maybe they've slowed that down because he's about to die, and then he did.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. A really good point.
Yeah.
Because that almost, then would have played into, they're going to die because they're doing the same thing that they did
Exactly.
last
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
There's no formula that we can like put our finger on, so that's kind of good.
Definitely. Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to go watch episode 21 and we'll be
Yeah.
back with you. We'll probably release it a week later, the recording. So, yeah, we'll catch you in a week. And thank you very much for listening. Just keep walking. Oh, wait. You're looking at me like I'm forgetting something because I am. You've been Liam.
have been Liam.
Before
Oh
that,
my
just
goodness.
before
All right.
that.
You do.
Questions
you
and
do.
suggestions to turnsounds@gmail.com.
That's
we
right.
always appreciate people
True.
reaching out. Unless you're a walker, don't reach out at us. But yeah, very much so. All of these Turn Sounds things are built on community outreaches and people, fans like you, who say, I like watching this thing and I like talking about it. Maybe you even want to have your voice heard on this show. That'd be nice as well.
I
So
would.
have a thoughtful consideration.
Absolutely. Yep.
Do it.
Until then, you've been Ben.
You've been Isaac.
And I'm Liam.
Oh,
Let's do it.
sorry about that outro, guys. See you next week.
Excellent.